Chord is one of the biggest units any creator or anybody in the whole Persona 5 scene is going to be talking about, or has been talking about as well. Everyone knows, if you've been on YouTube at all in the last, let's be honest, 2 months since the game came out on global, knowing that if you're playing this game with any sort of clairvoyancy, a future sight, Chord is the character you are going to be wanting to get. And in today's video, I'm going to be going over why Chord is such an influential pick, as well as how easy she is to use, because she cares about one thing and one thing only: attack. She is an attack buffer and a highlight enabler. So, what does Chord or Ayaka Saki do? Well, first things first, if I'm looking at her abilities, her first ability, Distortion, deals a percent of attack electric damage to all foes, and if there is a co-star, the co-star deals an additional electric damage based on a percentage of their attack to the main target, where co-star, of course, is brought into unison notes, where we select one ally to become the co-star and increases their attack based on 24% of Ayaka's attack for 3 turns, or at level 10, up to 1076, and there can only be one co-star. While Catchy Hook, we select one ally to immediately use their highlight and increase that highlight damage by 86.1%, or a percent of their highlight. Highlights used by the skill will not count towards their highlight cooldown, and if the target is a Siege member, then increase their next 30 final damage amp by a percentage. And lastly, her Thief Tactics, or her highlight, where it increases all allies' damage bonus by a percent for 4 actions and restores 10% highlight energy after each ally's action for up to 40%. So 4 allies go, you get 40% highlight back. And then her 2 passive abilities: when an ally uses their highlight or Thurgy, immediately increase their attack by percentage for 1 turn, and it increases this effect by 1.5 times if they are the co-star. And lastly, her final one is Course Effect. After an ally uses their highlight or Thurgy, you immediately restore a percentage of the attack plus a base amount of HP to the lowest HP ally. So lowest HP percent, of course. Of course, as always, what we've been seeing on global is all of this is subject to change. All of these abilities could have something added to it, and from the talks that I've talked to already, and by what we've seen from the previous live stream, they kind of already linked the fact that they are going to give Ayaka Saki or Chord a buff. So Chord is more likely going to get some sort of a buff. I don't imagine it can be anything too extreme, because I'm going to be real, Chord is one of the best units in the game, and it's for a good reason. I already went over her awarenesses yesterday, but basically her most influential one is going to be, especially as a free-to-play or low spender, is going to be your A1, where it gives the co-star an additional 15% crit rate, as well as at the start of battle, select one ally to become the co-star. So basically now, instead of using skill 2, you can now start off the battle with using skill 1, where it comes down to, or you can use your healing ability, like any sort of items, anything like that. Your gun as well, any of that, instead of having to use skill 2 to bring up for a ally, a co-star. And then it's going to be awareness 6. Of course, her awareness 6 is disgusting, and that's why I really like A1, is because now Catchy Hook is ready at the start of battle and permanently decrease the Catchy Hook cooldown by 1 turn for up to 2 turns, and increases all allies' damage by 15% after using Catchy Hook, stacking up to 2 times. And then it's going to be, well, which should be A4 in the future, because they always switch, because A3 and 2 are switched and A5 and A4 are switched. So what's going to be A4 is going to be Highlight Enhanced, increases damage bonus duration to 6 ally actions, and increases highlight energy restore cap to 60%, and decreases all other allies' highlight cooldown by 1 turn. And then lastly, A3 or RA2. When using Catchy Hook, immediately increases that ally's damage by 30% for 1 turn. So as we can see here, and then lastly we have A2 and A4, which are general just level ups. And surprisingly, her A4, or what's going to be our A5, is actually going to be kind of influential because it increases our unison notes and thief tactics level, which is actually kind of important because that just will further increase the amount of attack we can give, as well as the amount of highlight, the increase of the highlight damage. And then A2 is also, or A3 is also going to be important because it increases catchy hook skill level. So all of her awarenesses are actually kind of huge and important in some regard. But of course, they aren't needed. A0 is perfectly fine. And if you want to push for a little more, A1 is also good to have. I went over this already. If you want to push A1, go for it, but she is perfectly fine at A0. And then moving on, I already talked about her weapon before. The biggest thing is the fact that it fills the highlight starting gauge by 40%. And when you run her with her preferred, which I went over this yesterday, it can be very important because it can allow you to use more highlights in the battle. I don't put too much salt into it. I know I've said in the past that it is big. Out of the weapons we've had so far, I think that this current weapon is the most important one. And if you were going for any 5-star weapon currently, it would be, in my opinion, Chords. Because the highlight starting gauge can be very, very helpful. Because like I've said, it can help you, if you're an auto battle like myself, it can help you start off the battle by being able to burn through the enemy's health faster, because you're able to use a big highlight faster. Or if you're looking at bossing as well as like so SOS or Guild Boss, it can also help with starting your damage out earlier and getting to your big highlights sooner. But of course, I want to say once again, she is completely usable without her 5-star weapon. You can use her 4-star instead, and she will perform just fine. And then when I'm looking at Chord's card sets, all that really matters is that I'm reaching a attack threshold of about 3,200 pre-combat. So I'm way overcapped on attack right now, which isn't the biggest deal, but I can also sacrifice some of my attack. This I can also reach it even if I use my 4-star weapon. I go from 5k all the way down to 4,300. I can even, instead of running, as we can see here, I'm running Prosperity. Prosperity with Trust is her best set because of the 25% starting percent highlight, as well as increases the ally's damage belt by 8% for 2 turns when using a skill on an ally. So very nice with that. And if I go and show you what else I can use. So your main sets you're going to be looking at is HP. I'm going to be looking at a healing effect, or what's called HP recovery, I believe, on global because of her chorus effect. So remember her one pass ability where she can heal. So we can use Chord as a pseudo healer, single target healer in fights with the use of it. And that's why we're looking at actually use a healing effect, and that can boost the healing amount by it. And then I can either use a attack percent or a HP percent, or same with both the star and the planet. So attack or HP percent doesn't really matter as long as you're reaching about that 3,200 threshold. And I can show you that with subpar cards, even with using straight HP percent on both, and with only minor attack gain, so 8.1% there, plus an additional 6.1% there, my threshold right now with the 4-star weapon is 3476. And if I put my 5-star weapon back on, so 3476 all the way to, look at that, over 4k. So if you get her 5-star weapon, you're golden. You'll never have to worry about that attack threshold. The only time you need to then think about is, do you want to give up a little bit of damage, like self-damage, for over survivability? That's where you have to decide for yourself. And then for substats, it's mostly just attack percent equals HP percent, and then defense is equal to SP recovery, I mean. And then of course you're going to want to speed tune her anyway, just a little bit of speed to make sure that she acts before your main damage dealers, meaning your Joker, your Barry, your Kasumi, all of that. So, and then like I said, I'm looking at that, so Prosperity. And then in the future, we get another card set that is called Reconciliation. So I'm going to be running this exact card set right here, Reconciliation with Creation. Because what it does is increase speed by 6, and in battle increases max HP, attack, and defense by 15%. Not the biggest, but it's the Reconciliation part right here. At the start of a battle, increase the damage dealt for their lowest speed thief by 12%, and it cannot be triggered again. So I would be running these interchangeably depending on what team I'm using. So if I'm running a team with, I could be running it either with, like, for example, Leon and Chord in the future. And if I'm using both of those characters on the same team, I'm going to be using Prosperity on one and then Truth and Reconciliation on the other. And then another card set that we have on global right now is actually the Control and Departure. And I'm just going to show you the Departure because it's the whole thing is the Departure 1 right now. And it's for, if I pull it up real quick right here, Departure. What Departure does, if we look at right there, is with Control, decreases main target's defense by 23% for 2 turns after attacking them with a skill. I only would run this if I'm using another character that will do some sort of buffing or some sort of target ability on my ally, and I'm instead going to be using Chord as the pseudo. And then what Control does, if you give me 1 second, right here. And then what Control does is, it's not really anything important. It just increases max HP by 12% and deals 8% HP additional damage to the main target when attacking with a skill. Not that big of a deal. Not that big of a deal. So you don't have to worry about it. But it's mostly for the Departure set. But this is only for very rare occasions and for very, it's basically for depending on the team comp, which is what we're going to get into right now. And then switching over to my global account right now, just to show off the sort of teams we could be using right now. So as we can see here right now, I have my Makoto team. So in the future, instead of using Marion, I could be using Chord instead if I'm looking to increase my Makoto's damage that much even more. So replace Marion with Chord. When I'm looking at my Yusuke team, I would not be using it because Yusuke, for one, doesn't scale off of attack, and he doesn't care about his highlight as much because of the fact that if I read what his highlight does right now, increases chance of activating inspiration counterattacks by 35% for 3 turns. So basically, you just highlight back and forth into him, and you're always having that little bit of inspiration for the most part going. Because what inspiration does is 35% chance to activate resonance, and so it basically always keeps it going. So that's why he doesn't care. He doesn't scale off of attack, and he doesn't need to spam his highlight, as opposed to a character like I would, look at my fire team. So who I would replace here if I don't need healing is I would replace Lufel with Chord, increase my On's attack, as well as able to spam out On's highlight even that a little bit more, because what her highlight does right here, if you can read it, increases damage of On's fire skill by a percentage more. So you're able, if you use your Thief Tactics, you can now use your Falling Sun or your Tri-Fire and gain even more damage going. So Chord can even be helpful for there. And then I would even use her for in my Joker team right now. I could replace my Marion with Chord, assuming you don't need survivability. Because even though I know Chord does give some healing, it's not like she's going to be amazing, overly amazing. Currently on TW, I would be replacing, instead of using Vino here, I would use Chord. And now we actually have a straight mono electric team going. So pretty cool. And of course in the future, I'm gonna be using Chord with Summer Closer. I'm gonna be using Chord with Mesa. I'm gonna be using Chord with Haru. I could even use her with, if I really wanted to, I could use her with basically every single team in the game, except for Yusuke and Cease. But especially with characters such as Kasumi and Barry in the future, because they want to spam their highlights. So overall, she is such a universal pickup for those teams, and that's why Chord is seen as a must-pull unit. Again, I don't like the term must-pull. I prefer the term highly recommend. It's just like I recommend people to pick up her weapon because the highlight gain is nice, but if you don't have it, she's still fine at 4-star, and that's why I said yesterday, it's more important for you to choose how you want to spend your currency. Because getting characters and their weapons can be quite costly in this game. Like a character could potentially run you up 24,000 and their weapon could cost you an additional 14,000. So almost 38,000 gems worth. That's a lot. But that's why I tell people, pick and choose what you want to do with your account. But of course, if you want to grab these characters, grab the characters. But if you want to skip it, your account's not any worse off. You'll be able to clear basically every content in the game. I think the hardest content in the game to clear right now, because of the fact that they nerfed it or made it harder, is Velvet Trials. But Velvet Trials is a content that stays forever. So yeah, Chord can help you clear this, but if you're pulling Chord to be able to clear this, you're a fool. But if you want to say, well, I want to clear Velvet Trials, get a higher score in Sea of Souls, get a higher score in Guild Boss, sure, go for it. I would say Chord is the amazing pickup. But if you don't get her, don't sweat it. You can also get her in future reruns as well. She is still a dominant character in today's meta, and there's also going to be future other characters you're going to want anyway. So, if you grab her, I love that for you. If you don't, not the end-all be-all is what I'm trying to get across. But hopefully you find this video helpful, and if so, please leave a like down below and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye for now.